Hi there. For this example, we're going to look at Sapphire plugins with RackDefocus plugin inside of After Effects. These are the same plugins that work inside of Combustion, Premiere as well, and Final Cut in Motion too. So the RackDefocus plugin does a really nice job of simulating a camera defocus. And for this clip, I'm going to play it back for you just to show you how it's locked off here. There's no defocus going on. It's just shot in focus the entire time. And how with the Sapphire plugins RackDefocus, what you can actually do is simulate a RackDefocus. And it's different from a basic Gaussian blur. So if I go to my clip here and I apply a basic Gaussian blur, what you'll see here is there we go. You'll see as the blurriness gets to a high level, you start to lose all of your highlights. Everything gets smeared out. But instead, you can actually do a true lens blur by using the Sapphire RackDefocus to preserve those shapes in the image. These lights here are all going to be preserved. And I'll go ahead and show you how that works. So I'm just going to go back to my effect palette. I'm going to go to the Sapphire Blur and Sharpen category, and I'm going to go ahead and add RackDefocus. So you see immediately it's preserving those shapes much more like a true camera lens, and unlike the blur, nothing is getting smeared out. You're able to see the circle of confusion here. What I can do is I can either use my on-screen widgets or I can use my effect editor controls. In this case, what I want to do is crank up the defocus width, and I'll just zoom in on that for you. So as I go ahead and make that larger, you'll see that the circle gets larger and larger and larger, and my on-screen widget is also moving as well. So it just depends on whatever you're more comfortable working with. I can easily turn that off by just turning off the Show Defocus With checkbox, and then I'm just working in the effect editor. You can see it's also very, very fast as well. One of the nice things we have here is also the ability to boost your highlights. So oftentimes if you're using gamma on a clip like this, it's not only going to affect your highlights but your midtones. So I'll just go ahead and turn up the use gamma parameter here a little bit so you can see how it's affecting the background as well. So I'll go ahead and set that back to its default setting of 2 and show you the difference here between using gamma and actually boosting your highlights. So when I go ahead and boost my highlights here, you're going to get the true highlight preservation, but only in those shapes. So you can see it's not affecting any of your midtones there. So it's a very nice realistic parameter that we've added to the RackDefocus plugin. I'm going to just play this back for you to show you how fast it is and how it's actually tracking to those shapes of the cars as we play through this clip. So you have this basic circle as your default choice, but you have a great many more options you can use if you want to go ahead and start adjusting the lens shape. So what I have here is this lens parameter, and I've got my shape editor. So I can go and just zoom in. You can see I've got circle, then I've got 3 sides, 4 sides, and so on and so forth, up to 12 different sides. So as I start to adjust these, you'll see it's using different geometry for every single lens shape. I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to give you an idea, you've got all these great basic settings for the lens shape you can use. Let me just go back to 3 sides here for the triangle, just to show you some of the additional controls you have over the movement and the shape of the lens. I've got my lens rotation, so I can go ahead and actually adjust the rotation here to animate that if I want to go ahead and have that dial around. You can see it's very, very responsive here. I've got the roundness, so I can start further tweaking out the shapes. And as I adjust the roundness, you can see you're getting some pretty radically different shapes here just from the 3-sided triangle. This is probably the best time to show you this Show Shape option. You can see it right here. I'm going to actually go to it and click on this checkbox. It's letting me look at what I like to call the under the hood version of my RackDefocus lens. So you can see here, I'm just going to make this a little bit wider here, that all the roundness and all the rotation I've been doing to the lens is actually mimicked in this black and white image of my actual camera lens, sort of beneath the surface, if you will. I've also got bokeh, which is going to soften the outer edges to give it more of a finer fall off on the defocus. And if I take bokeh to a negative value, of course, you'll start to see a ring type defocus from the inside out. I've also got lens noise, so if I want to start adding bits of imperfection and dust, you can see that. It's cranked up really high there, but you've got the ability to do that too. I'm going to go back and I'm going to uncheck my Show Shape checkbox just to show you it's a pretty radically different camera lens than what we were looking at before. This might be a little bit over the top, but the idea is you have all this control to go ahead and simulate these different types of lenses if you want for a camera defocus. And of course, you can easily keyframe any of this to do an animation. So if we want to, let's go ahead and actually add a keyframe here for the defocus width. And let's make it pretty high here. So we've got this shot coming from out of focus to into focus. We'll jump about 2 seconds into the clip then, and then add another keyframe and turn that all the way down. So as I go ahead and play this back here, you'll see that it's giving me the impression of being shot out of focus into focus with a camera, when in fact this entire shot is just done in focus and we're just using a plugin to simulate the lens defocus. So those are some of the controls of RackDefocus. Let's say you wanted to go one step further. Let's say you had a very specific geometric shape you wanted to use as your lens, and it's not something you could get by simply editing the Show Shape checkbox and adjusting the roundness and the rotation and whatnot. What we have in that case is another plugin, and that plugin is called Convolve. Convolve can be used for a number of different things. What I actually want to do is show it to you as a RackDefocus, which is the most straight out of the box use for it. I'm going to go ahead and just show you. I have another layer loaded into my composition here. I just have this Apple logo here. You can see it's a pretty non-symmetrical shape here of geometry, something that you probably couldn't create with the lens editor built into RackDefocus. So instead, you either make this on your own or you get some stock footage or whatever you want. But the idea is you can create your own custom lens shape and then use that to do a camera defocus. So I'm going to do that by turning my layer of the cars back on. I'm actually going to turn off my my Apple logo here, and I'm going to apply the Convolve plugin. The Convolve plugin, again, it's just like a super RackDefocus, takes a custom lens. I go to my effect editor, go to the Sapphire Blur and Sharpen. I'm going to pick on Convolve here, and by default it just seems to be smearing out everything. So there are a couple things we need to do, and the main thing is to select your kernel. So when I go here to my kernel option, you can see it's asking me for an input. And with any input pull-down menu for Sapphire plugins in After Effects, it's letting you look at all the layers in your comp and use any of them. So in this case, I only have two layers. I have the cars and I have the Apple logo. So what I want to do is actually choose that Apple logo as my kernel. And what this essentially is doing is using that Apple logo as a lens. I'm going to go ahead and actually take down the defocus width here, or the kernel size as it's called in this particular parameter. To show you here, you can actually see it's using the Apple logo to do my defocus. To further clear that up, I'm going to turn up the boost highlights option. It's the same boost highlights we had in RackDefocus. And you can really see here how as you make this kernel size small to large, it's actually using that custom shape that we imported to do our camera lens. So that's the Convolve, so that's sort of one step further within RackDefocus, and come back soon for additional videos. Thanks.